does he have a clicker? Will he be able to move the slides? Then I think you'll just say next, and next will happen.
Recording in progress.
Yeah.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Still morning, I guess. So my name is Ben Roberts, as introduced. So I'm the Chief of Technology and Innovation at Liquid Intelligent Technologies. And I'm going to lighten the tone a bit to that now to talk about websites and DNS and less on cybersecurity, but particularly around websites for education. So if we can, Right, so first of all, I'll give a bit of an introduction to Liquid. We have about 100,000 kilometers of fiber across Africa. We're in about 15 countries now, and I think it's the largest network of interconnected fiber on the continent. But we have recently rebranded, changed from being Liquid Telecom to being Liquid Intelligent Technologies. We're not just infrastructure, we're having different types of technology business, fiber being at the heart of the infrastructure, but then moving on to data centers and cloud. So the map is here showing our network across Africa. We've been very strong in southern and east, expanding now into West Africa. Next slide. Also in our group, we have, and they're here today, we have Africa Data Centers who are hosting a lot of the content on the continent. We have some of the largest data centers around. So in Cape Town, Johannesburg, Nairobi, some of the biggest and most used and well-connected data centers. We've opened in Nigeria, in Lagos, but we're building about 10 large data centers in Africa. And for those people who are in operating domain registries and domain registry services, we're hosting some of those in our data centers, including Kennick, who we're hosting here in Africa Data Centers. Next slide. So this is the subject I was going to talk about today, which is around education and domains registered for education. So I wanted to get a bit of data before this meeting, but we didn't quite get time to send around a survey. But I have created a survey which is there at the bottom. So if you are running a country TLD, please do click on that tinyurl.com and do fill in a survey. But we wanted to get some data around this. I actually had a look at the websites, have a lot of country domain registrars, and found it a bit hard to get very much information from some of them. But I do know that in Kenya we have sc.ke, which is designated for schools, lower and middle and education, and we have ac.ke, which is designated for universities, higher education, and TVETs. I think it's something similar in Uganda, but I could only find the price, but I couldn't find the detail of what they were dedicated for. And Nigeria has edu.ng. Now, why a separate domain for education? I think it gives a clear identity of what the usage are. When the first domains were set up, you had .com for commercial, you had .org for organizations, and .edu in the United States is used for schools and universities. It does also, if you are an educational establishment, you can say, why have a .com instead of your .s.ac.ke? You actually get special offers. You get free stuff from people, or you get special educational offers from places like Zoom or Microsoft or Google. Automatically, if you're an educational establishment, you would qualify for special educational pricing for cloud services. But anyway, we're going to collect some more data. We'll circulate that. But it seems across the board that in most countries, every university has taken up a website and email, and often mostly using their designated country education second level domain. But when it comes down to TVETs, we're seeing, Mioli just said to me, it's a work in progress. We're seeing that those technical training colleges are not having a website particularly, and schools, maybe the top private schools or private schools will have a website, or they might be using a Facebook page instead. They might not have built their own website, but public schools are mostly not having any kind of a website or web presence. They'll be using a Gmail account for their administration and not using any kind of a public website. Now, why do you need it, right? So I think the basics of saying what your school does and what your education establishment does, having a website giving details of your exam results, etc. It's an important service. And a few months ago, I think a lot of people, they got an SMS from a system to say what school your children had been sent to. And everyone was going, where's this school? I don't know where it is. And they try to go online. So now that we're all, we're expecting to find all the information online now. And parents and pupils who are looking at what school or what college or what TVET to go to, they need to find information online. So that's why we're looking at this problem and, why schools should be taking up, but are not taking up their designated internet resources. Next slide, please. So, just a basic what's going on a global scale. The UN General Assembly has just happened as well, but even from the beginning of this year, we're seeing the United Nations, a general call to action to connect all schools to internet, to connect all educational establishments across the world to internet. And that includes having connectivity at a school, but as well as that, having website, having web presence is part of being connected. So the UN Secretary General is talking of the leaving no one behind and the Giga project to connect all schools. Next question, next slide. Next slide. However, it's a bit slower. However, people were left behind. So in 2020, schools closed in a lot of countries, but certainly across Africa, a lack of resources, lack of infrastructure, lack of learners having devices or phones at home meant that people were cut out of education altogether for a period while schools were closed. So we have a long way to go. Kenya has had some very large-scale projects to connect schools. A Universal Service Fund project from the Communications Authority connected 980 schools about 4 years ago. UNICEF now have connected 294 schools, I think it is so far, in Kenya, and they're looking to do 1,000 primary schools across the country by the end of the year. So yeah, the next slide is talking about what UNICEF are doing. This is a global project called Project Giga. It's a partnership between the International Telecommunications Union and UNICEF to connect all schools in the world. It's a process of mapping to find out where schools are, financing, helping governments find finance to connect schools, and then going ahead and connecting them. So in Kenya, they've launched into the connecting stage, but they're also helping governments across Africa to find the financing, to find the money to sustainably connect schools to the internet. Next question, next slide. So at Liquid, we have become a partner to the Giga project, and we're doing our own mapping. So we've brought a schools map for the whole of the continent. We've mapped about 250,000 schools to say where they are, and then we've color-coded them all on the map to show how far they are from our fiber optic network. And there's a lot of low-hanging fruit. We find in Kenya, 6,000 schools are within half a kilometer of our network, yet still not connected. Even in Nairobi, schools have not got internet. They can get a mobile phone signal, yeah, but that's teachers consuming data on their own mobile phones with their own money. The school itself has not got an internet connection, has not got Wi-Fi in the school that teachers and learners can use. So this is the preamble. On to the next slide. This is how we're doing it. So this is what we're doing a school in Kenya. You see the children have come along to help the fiber pullers connect the internet in, but we have a different range of technologies from fiber directly to the school. So 6,000 in Kenya can be connected this way very easily and very cost effectively. Wireless networks in the middle mile connect schools that are a bit further away, between sort of 1 and 20 kilometers. And then satellites are going to connect the most distant locations. In some countries, very, very dispersed in terms of the rural urban population. They'll be having more satellite connections than a country like Kenya. Next slide. I haven't got any sound, here we go. There's no sound on the video, but here's a video of connectivity going into action. This is from the ITU This is from the UNICEF website, just being launched today. So here they are connecting a very remote school in Kyrgyzstan. So the Internet Society team, I think probably we have Internet Society here today, traveled across some very perilous terrain to get to this very remote location. And a long way away, but very much closer to home. This is a project we did earlier this year in Lamu, Kiwayu. So we traveled up there by boat to connect a school on a satellite link. It's about maybe 20 kilometers from the Somalian border. And the only way we could put a connection in, there's no mast on the island, there's no tower on the island, so we used a satellite link to connect the school. Thanks. I thought there'd be sound, but we haven't got it today. So next slide. Yeah, so this is really how it's done. We connect to data centers, towers, and then finally to schools. We can skip to the next slide. This is just about how we build networks. Next slide. And then I'll just pick on this. I did actually launch at the last DNS forum. I think it was held in Nairobi about 3 or 4 years ago. We at Liquid, we run a very robust Anycast DNS platform across the continent. And we have four servers in every country we operate. So we have 2 servers for recursive DNS, which are 5.11.11.5 and 5.11.11.11. Nice and easy to remember. And they're free to people to use. So we have our customers using them. We have ISPs using those. They do billions of DNS transactions every hour. Then we have some authoritative DNS servers as well. But by being on an Anycast system, should you get any failure of a whole country node, another country will pick up the transactions. So this is the basis of why we're looking at applying this infrastructure towards websites. Next slide. But back to solving the problem. So we've partnered with a few different organizations, but here in Kenya, we've partnered with Kenik, and we've been trying to push to put new schools onto websites. The schools that we've connected, we have a connection with them, and we have them in WhatsApp groups, the ICT teachers, the principals, and we've been getting them to pick up their domains, their .sc.ke domains, and we've been helping them use them. So we've been working with Kenik to get the domains. We've been deploying that on our DNS system. We're providing the connectivity, and then we're working with partners to get them to use that domain. We're working with Microsoft to get them to use email, Teams, and collaboration tools for education. And we're working with a Kenyan company called Elimu Holdings, who are specialists and very experienced at providing school websites. So by bringing together partners who put together the technology stack, we're able to help schools then with their journey for digital transformation, help them streamline their operations by having that online presence. We can go to the next one. So this is an example website provided by our partners Elimu. So they have you can go to the next slide, but we have a very cost-effective, next slide. Yeah, very cost-effective solution. I think what puts a lot of educational establishments off from having a website, they think that they get their domain, but they think, hey, you have to hire a web designer now, and the web designer wants 100,000 shillings or something. There's no need to do this. We can start with the basics. So we have an out-of-the-box template we can deploy en masse, an out-of-the-box template for schools. And then there are tools on there to help them with their productivity, help them with their revenue collection, help them with bulk SMSs to parents to tell them news about the school, or tell them if the school trip's late or something like that. And by bringing together the domain and the email, getting people sort of hooked on now having your online presence, other applications plug in. So learning management systems, educational content, and you know, there are different ways to make this cost effective. And bringing advertising to the schools itself, just putting advertising for university courses, for instance, is one way to help the school be able to afford the hosting for the website. We can go to the next slide. So yeah, implementation plan for a school. If a school wants a website, first of all, we would you know, contact whoever's going to be the main lead for the school. We engage the school stakeholders, find out about what it is, what information is they want there, their contact details, their values, their after-school clubs, etc. Collect that information. Some basic training to them and to get them using the template, and progressive advanced training so they get to adopt and use the website more. At some point, they may wish to create their own website completely, but we've taken them on a journey where we've put them, you know, putting gradually more and more modules, more and more information and services onto their website. We can go to that, yeah, and obviously technical support in the background, you know, as a partner for administration and looking after the website. They don't have to worry about the complicated stuff of looking after their, you know, their content management system. We provide that for them as a managed services. So having done this in Kenya, been working with Illuma in Kenec, we have had, you know, we've managed to get a lot on board. Unfortunately, not all schools pick up again. They don't always renew after a year, but we're finding more and more are renewing, and we have to keep adding more schools. But we're now pushing to push this out across the regions. You know, Liquid, I say we're present in 15 countries, and we are, I don't know how many countries we're a domain registrar in, but certainly I know we are in some of the neighboring countries here. But you know, we obviously have an operating company in 15 countries, and we can join up to become a domain registrar in that particular country. But we really want to push this type of service. We're working with different stakeholders, and we've been running a process of round tables, bringing together stakeholders in education, and there are many. You know, it's not, people think it's just the Ministry of Education in Kenya, but there are many other. There's the Teacher Service Commission, there's the Parents Association, Head Teachers Association, all these many agencies, bringing them together to find out, you know, what it is that is needed from a website, and we're putting that together. We can deploy this en masse, and developing the school websites, and we're also expecting to access donor funding to get this off the hook, and this is really what we're looking to do. We want to partner with you know, stakeholders in education, private education, public education, as well as the country top level domain, the NICs, and roll this out in a number of countries with a target to put about 250,000 school websites over the course of the next few years. So that's ends my presentation. I don't know if we've got time for questions, but please, if you are running a country top level domain, please do fill out my survey, but I'm going to get Barak to send it round in the course of next week after this conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben. Any burning question? I'll take. Okay, so we'll do one from here, one from here, one from here, and one from that side. If you are left out, Ben is still around until Thursday. That was right, isn't it? So he can still answer you along the corridors. So, Lenny, you need a mic.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, okay, good. This is Alain Ayina, former CTO Wakren. Wakren is the West African Research and Education Network. And my question is going to, because Ben, you spoke about schools, but it looked like you didn't mention TENET, the local, the National Education and Research Network. So I don't know if, do you have any relationship with TENET and Ubuntu Net Alliance in this project?
So thank you very much, Ale. I'm not sure if Kenneth wants a right of response, but okay, so
Thank you so much for that presentation, Ben. My name is Athena Morgan from the International Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And I appreciate the work that you're doing to keep schools connected. But my question is, with everything that you're doing, what are the measures that Liquid Technologies is taking to ensure that their network is not being used as a conduit for online exploitation of children? And also, while you're setting up the special packages for schools in terms of bundles, are there any safeguards that you've put up to ensure that these systems are robust and not easily manipulated by people who would want to exploit children? Thank you.
Thank you, Prof.
Morning, this is Joseph Sevilla from Strasbourg University. Ben, one of the, as you were mentioning, it seems one of the major problems is the last mile connectivity. What is your take on new technologies like white spaces to solve that problem? And possibly the second factor will also be cost. What can we do to, or is being done to lower the cost for educational institutions, the cost of connectivity?
Thank you, Prof. In fact, I might want to add to your question, apart from white spaces, just new technologies in general. So maybe you could add to that.
Good afternoon. My name is David, and you have talked about school connectivity. And my question is that how do you identify the schools? That is number one. Are they the lower level schools or including high schools? Number two is, apart from providing the school connectivity in the website, do you have other programs maybe where you sponsor schools? Maybe a school can have a library, a computer lab, so that the student can be able to not just having the connectivity. What about the other infrastructures? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben. So while I notify you of 3 minutes, please also comment on the sustainability of the project itself.
Yeah. Okay. Let me go through the questions. Good questions. Yes, the question from Wakwen about do we work with Kennet? We work very much with Kennet on university connectivity, and they in Kenya. I hope it's still the same, but Mioli tells me that our infrastructure connects 80% of universities in Kenya, which they provide the network for, and they're very much a partner to Liquid. We do work with NRENs across the continent, and I think generally, if you look at our history, we've kind of been quite supportive, I think, over the time to NRENs and Connectivity University. But ultimately, most in the countries where we have fiber, most universities and most university campuses are already connected, with the exception of perhaps in Nigeria, might be a work in progress. But we're now seeing this challenge of connecting schools as being the big connectivity gap. The question about protecting children from exploitation, it's very key, of course, and the schools that we do connect, it's a requirement of the contract that some filtering is put in place to stop the bad things on the internet. But we're starting to look at this. So filtering itself is actually quite expensive. So someone's saying, oh, we want to bring down the cost, but then filtering also pushes up the cost, and filtering technology is coming at sometimes we've been pushed down on cost for to provide the connectivity, but just the software for filtering might cost almost the same as what the connectivity is costing. So we're looking in Liquid to try and bring down the cost of filtering, and we're doing some of our own R&D to do that. However, I'm going to point out, yeah, there are developments going on in the world of internet standards, particularly around TLS 1.3, which are going to make it almost impossible to filter anything, and you can make it almost impossible for operators to inspect packets and filter anything. So I just want to make that aware to people. But it's very much, it's a key task. But we're thinking not just around blocking and filtering, but we're thinking with some of our vendors and our own innovations actually around how to get help to children. So if a child does go online and starts looking for content about suicide, we're looking at, rather than just blocking it and saying 404 not found, you can't find this website, we're actually thinking and working with some of our software vendors and providers around how to help the school identify that that child is at risk. So it's going beyond just blocking. It's actually going around getting information and help to children. To Dr. Sevilla's question, last mile, new technologies, white spaces, and other technologies. I mean, we watch this all the time, and we are, technology is shifting, and some is here to potentially disrupt us, and some is here to take us forwards. We at Liquid, we just bought a vendor of last mile technology. So an African operator has just bought an Israeli technology vendor called Telrad Networks. So we have some last mile point-to-point, point-to-multipoint LTE networks in both licensed band and unlicensed band. So we're looking at how to use this and grow on this platform. We've been following TV white spaces for a long time and failed to see traction in I guess in the cost of the customer premises equipment. The big barrier to all of these wireless technologies is the cost, and satellite for that matter, is the cost of the customer premises equipment. Now, everybody is getting very excited about a certain car manufacturing rocket man who's got some satellites that are coming, but those terminals that sell for $500 in the United States do not cost $500 to make. They cost considerably more and are being subsidized by the fact that people in the States are taking 24-month contract at $100 a month. So, we need, if we're going to really drive down the cost, we need these new technologies to really address the cost of CPEs. Even 5G CPEs now are costing over $500 a month. So for 5G, like point-to-point wireless for enterprises and stuff. So we've got to, look at that. So yeah, it's very much on our minds, but we're working with the ITU, as we discussed the other day, on some of these things. And I think Adam mentioned about Africans in some of the tech standards groups, but I think a Zimbabwean has just been elected the director of the ITU-D as well, the ITU's development arm. So we have quite a lot of participation now, I think, in some of these global standards bodies from Africa. And then the last question from David was about the identifying the schools and how that is done. Now, the Giga project I mentioned, and really what we want to do is to connect every school in the internet, every school in the world to the internet, right? So it's not meant to be selective, but things do get prioritized and do become selective. So that's why we start with mapping. So mapping is to identify where they all are, so then you can quantify what it will cost to connect them all. Unfortunately, some projects, because not projects that have been done in the past have not necessarily had sufficient budget to connect every school. We've seen that they then pick off dots on a map. So we have, for some of the projects we've done, gone to a village in Western Kenya, and we put up a satellite link in a particular village. And we put a satellite link because we got one school in that village that was very far from anywhere. It was not viable to put in a microwave link or a satellite or a fiber. But actually, if you look at that village, there's actually 8 schools in that village. So if we had been asked to connect all 8 schools, we would have put in a tower, we would put in a microwave, we would have put in a fiber even. But by picking off all these dots, you end up not using the best technology to, you use the best technology to win that contract, to do that job. But if you get to do all of a country, you look at it in a more holistic way, and you would put in a network to cover a whole region, a whole county, a whole country. So it does bring down the cost to do that. And you asked about sponsoring schools. Look, we are doing some sponsorships around special needs education, and we're focusing that. And in Nairobi, we've connected 17 schools to internet, or special needs units of 17 special needs schools with kids with disabilities. We're not able to do every school under sponsorship, because you're looking at, a couple of $1 billion needed to do this in, a country like Nigeria, if not more. We're not able to sponsor that sort of money, but we're able to